Welcome back to the Around the League podcast. I'm your host, Cody, and actually flying solo today. No Rob, enjoy your vacation, my guy, and no co host jumping on, but I'm going to be covering the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to kick it off with the New Orleans Saints down in the Bayou, and honestly, interesting offseason for them. 2021 in review, they lost Sean Payton this offseason, right? But I do think he got the most out of that team last year that he could have possibly gotten. A couple things that were interesting. They jumped out to a 5-2 start with Jameis Winston. I think we were all surprised at that, but Sean Payton really knows how to scheme it up and is a master offensive mastermind, really adjusted defense as well, especially on the fly. We saw Jameis Winston go down with that gruesome leg injury, I think, around week 8. And then things took a turn for the worse. However, I do think in hindsight, when we look at that 2021 Saints team, we all look at it, we say Peyton and that organization got as much out of that team as they could possibly get out of it. They had a lot of injuries along the offensive line after being very healthy for several years in a row. And then they were going down the line with backup quarterbacks. Taysom Hill, clearly not it. Finally moved him to tight end. Thank goodness. Couldn't stand to watch that anymore. But at the end of the day, what Sean Payton did was very impressive. He's gone. In steps a new head coach. However, the offensive coordinator, Carmichael, remains the same. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he is at better, the same, or worse without Peyton. I actually think he may be worse because Peyton called plays for 13 years. Even though Carmichael's been there, it's going to be interesting to see if he really learned something and if he can improve some of these negative metrics on Winston's side and on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to get to. So as we look ahead to 2022, this team is projected to finish second in the division. Go check out the podcast with Tommy McGuire. Really fun listen there as he gave some good insight on the Carolina Panthers and even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. He hosts the Panther Up pod with us, so it's interesting breaking down the other half of this division where we think people will finish. I do think there's a little more upside with the Panthers than the Falcons, but I do think New Orleans really is the second best team in this division, but I don't think this is a very good division, so I don't think that's saying much. They're projected to finish second with about 8-9 wins, about 8.5 wins. I think that's very reasonable based on their strength of schedule, based on what we've seen from them, and just kind of based on the division itself, right? I could see them finishing just under that at that 7-8 win total. I would not be surprised at that, similar to what they did a few years ago. But they've consistently been one of the better organizations in the NFL. So as they get Jameis Winston back, he's going to be the starter. Taysom Hill is finally in his natural position as a tight end. I know it's not his natural position, but what was this dude doing playing as an NFL quarterback? That is the only thing where I look at Sean Payton, I'm like, all right, this is kind of a joke. Finally, he's no longer doing that. He's going to learn how to play tight end, but it's probably more suitable for him. Jameis Winston, interesting metrics on him. He was 10th in first half pass efficiency before the injury, right? So in the first half of games, he was 10th overall in first half pass efficiency. I thought that was very interesting considering the Jameis Winston we know. We know he was overall inefficient. We know he was live and die by the deep ball, high turnover rate. So I do think it was nice to see that overall efficiency improve. And with Winston, we saw them jump out to that 5-2 start, and the overall offensive efficiency after he left truly plummeted. However, what was also interesting was their pass rate plummeted after he got hurt, right? So he was actually trusted to throw the ball about 54% of the time, where the league average is 52, 53%. After he left, they dropped and finished overall for the season at a 50-50 split, right? So they started running the ball more. They started running the ball more on first downs because they didn't have anyone good that was back there. Sean Payton was squeezing as much as he could out of Jameis Winston. However, what's really, really tough about that is there's only so much you could do, right? And he squeezed as much out as he could out of Winston, but these other guys, you could only get so much out of them. So he had to run the ball more. I think in hindsight, that really hurt Alvin Kamara. He was playing against a lot more stacked boxes. That hurt his efficiency. He was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage at a much higher rate than he had previously. And he wasn't able to get out in open space and really be explosive. So overall, that's where we really saw Kamara and the offensive efficiency drop. Now, the negatives of Winston that I'm interested to look for this year with Carmichael at the helm is he always had an above average sack rate of approximately 6.5%. Last year, that actually increased to 8.5%. And then in hindsight, Drew Brees for several years in a row had the second lowest sack rate at approximately 3.5%. Last year, We know Winston would always hold on to the ball, take on pressure. He still did that in New Orleans, even with the improved efficiency. Fourth highest pressure rate last year. And this led to one of the lower conversion rates in the NFL after the Saints, such an efficient offense for years and years, have been top 10 in offensive efficiency, top 10 in conversion rates for so many years. That was something that dropped due to the high sack rate and the high pressure rate because Winston seemed to be holding onto the ball. Again, back to those offensive line injuries. That's something we'll be looking towards improved health this year to be able to help Jameis Winston and that crew out and potentially some healthy wide receivers. All of those are going to go into play of why he had to hold on to the ball, why he was getting hit. Those are always going to be variables that are in play. So we'll see if some healthy receivers, the addition of Olave and Jarvis Landry alongside a healthier offensive line can actually lower the sack rate and the pressure rate for Jameis Winston. And if Carmichael can take advantage of that and improve this offense, because his accuracy on pressured throws dropped 20 percentage points, which is abysmal, right? This year, they're facing the ninth easiest schedule. I think that's a positive for the Saints. Another reason why they're projected to finish second in this division. However, they're facing a much better quarterback schedule. Last year, they faced a number of backups and rookies and Matt Ryan. So they were able to face a much easier quarterback schedule, right? So overall, my expectations for this team, I think they're just average. I think they're a 500 team. There are no 500 teams anymore, but I think they're going to be sitting there at 8-9 wins. The 8.5 projected win total, I think, is on point. I don't really see them getting over 10 wins. I would be shocked, and that would truly be an achievement if this team got over 10 wins. The offensive efficiency, it's just never going to be the same. Peyton and Breeze, what they were doing with that top 5, top 10 offensive efficiency year over year over year. A really, really strong early down success rate to get them into short yard situations, to have a strong third down conversion rate. I don't know if that's ever going to come back. That was truly incredible what they did as a unit, as an organization. So I'm just kind of looking for some stability on the offensive side of the ball, some top 15 offensive efficiency and improved sack rate and pressure rate to be able to see what they can do. And I'm also looking to see if Carmichael can scheme up something fresh to catch defenses off guard early in this season. They've only seen Sean Payton for 13 years at this point. Can he scheme up something fresh to catch defenses off guard and get them off to a hotter start in September? Remains to be seen. That's something I'm going to be looking out for. And Jameis Winston, he's going to have his moments. But like I said, the sack and pressure rate, I think they're going to come out. They just got to be lowered. They were higher than average last year. That's abysmal. This defense is going to need the offense to make some of those improvements that I mentioned. But this defense losing some pieces and naturally regressing from its incredible performance over the last couple of years is a really strong reason why I expect them to be right around 500 at the end of the season. A team that I do expect to be well below 500 at the end of the season is the Atlanta Falcons. This team was absolutely a disappointment, not just from a talent standpoint, but really from a play calling standpoint. So last year we saw Arthur Smith come over to this team, and quite honestly, I expected so much more out of them. And it was really, truly disappointing. I loved what Arthur Smith did in Tennessee. Even though you guys know me, I love to throw the ball. I'd prefer to do that. He had the highest run rate on first downs in Tennessee. We kind of thought that was part of the organization and the coaching staff. That remained true as Tennessee was number one last year in running the ball on early downs, specifically first downs. It makes sense. They got Derrick Henry. We know what Vrabel likes to do, but they were still very efficient. Arthur Smith, we thought he would take that efficiency and some of the creative play calling and pre-snap motion over to Atlanta. Those metrics slightly improved. However, he had the highest play action rate and the third highest motion rate in the NFL in Tennessee. Did not bring that over. Dropped dramatically as he came to Atlanta. Threw the ball much shorter on play action passes as opposed to allowing the explosiveness like he did in Tennessee of the receivers to come out. Now, Atlanta lost Ridley, but even with Ridley, even with Pitts, we saw an ADOT on early downs well below 3 yards on those play action passes. You run play action so that you can open things up down the field. You don't run play action so you can throw a wide receiver screen. So that's something that I want to see improve this year. Arthur Smith has to adjust and get back to utilizing play action to catch defenses off guard and be more aggressive. How about 4 yards down the field? Doesn't even have to be a deep ball. Get something in the seams, get a deep out, get something going to where you can open up the field for this offense. Matt Ryan, maybe it was his noodle arm. We'll find out if that's truly what it was when they opened things up up in Indy, but it was really disappointing to see an average play action rate after seeing him use it at the highest rate when he was in Tennessee. He shifted when he came to Atlanta, he shifted from the fourth most pass heavy team on first down. So Atlanta was the fourth most pass heavy team on first downs. Why? Because they were garbage offensively along the offensive line and had no running back. What do? They signed Mike Davis. We know he's not it. Some people still kind of bought into that, but he was never going to be it. Eventually, they get down to Cordero Patterson, and they still shift from the fourth most pass heavy team on first downs to the second most run heavy team behind only Tennessee. Tell me how that makes sense. Tell me how you come to a team that found most of its success throwing the ball on early downs, and then you shift them over to a run heavy team on first downs with a worse offensive line and a bunch of JV players that are mostly scat back, have mostly been scat backs, punt returners, or third down backs in the NFL. Makes zero sense. I do not know what Arthur Smith was doing. All the creativity, everything that he had in Tennessee, honestly, it's looking like it was more Vrabel's thumbprint on everything and kind of maybe guiding him where he should go or something else, or maybe it was some of the guys under him that had great ideas that's now the offensive coordinator, whatever it is. Atlanta didn't have Derrick Henry. They had a much worse offensive line. And as a result of all of this, what did Atlanta do? Did they finish really well in the run game? No. Obviously, they finished bottom 3 in success rate and yards per carry on those first down runs, but Arthur Smith kept doing it over and over and over. However, he did have some adjustments midway through. They hit that bye week. They get to week 7. They come out against the Dolphins and they chuck the ball. They throw it on early downs well over 54% of the time. And what do? They win the ball game. I think they throw it like 58% of the time on early downs. They win. All right, we're looking better. We're looking good. We're seeing what's working. Throwing the ball earlier, getting things going off of play action. We win a ball game. We're getting some momentum going. As some time trickles by, what does he do? He goes right back to what he was doing before, running the ball up the middle on first downs. Didn't really make sense. How he was running the ball didn't make sense. The fact that he was running the ball with that team didn't make sense. And it's not like Matt Ryan was bad. Matt Ryan had some of his best moments on early downs. He had nearly 50% success rate. His completion rate was his completion percentage was over 70% on those early downs. Why would you go away from this? These things do not make sense to me, and I really fear for the Atlanta Falcons this year. I do think that they had a nice little infusion of talent with Drake London on the outside, but now they've lost Matt Ryan. Okay, right now you've got the 10th toughest schedule going into this season, and your projected win total is 5. I'm actually not even sure Atlanta gets to 5 wins. Like, I could see the Carolina Panthers getting over 5 wins because they have more talent across the board. Like, if I'm looking at the NFC South, I talked about New Orleans a little bit. New Orleans, I could see them getting right there to 500, 8-9 wins. The Panthers, Matt Rule, I mean, if he hits 5 wins again, we talked about on that podcast, he's fired. I could see them with their talent getting over that 5-win mark. With Atlanta's talent, and now that they have Mariota and Ritter, which, by the way, Mariota is not going to be that much better. I don't think he's suddenly going to be a great NFL quarterback. He might be improved. He might be a little more seasoned, but he's not going to be the guy. And Desmond Ritter has to develop, right? They grabbed him late in the draft. I think he could be explosive, a lot of upside, but if they don't let him develop and put a good scheme around him, that's the thing. These young quarterbacks, the organization, I think, matters so much more than just the quarterback themselves. If they don't put a good scheme and put Desmond Ritter in phenomenal situations to grow and develop, then he's not going to be it either. And I think this is going to be a dire outlook for the Atlanta Falcons. I think at the end of all this, they're going to have to get rid of Arthur Smith if he continues to call plays in the manner that he has. If he continues to scheme up an offense that just struggles on first downs, if your strength is supposed to be first down on play actions, but you have a league average play action rate, you're throwing the ball at like a bottom 10 ADOT on those play action passes, your bottom 3 in success rate, early down success rate, and all of those key metrics, it's going to get ugly. You even look at 12 personnel for him that he really utilized in Tennessee. That is where they found their success last year, but they lost Hayden Hurst. They lost some tight ends. When Hayden Hurst went down last year, you saw their play action rates plummet. You saw their success and 11 personnel plummet because they were better, and 12 personnel, 13 personnel when he could utilize those tight ends like he did in Tennessee. The lack of adjustment is alarming from Arthur Smith's side. He needs things to be borderline perfect, it seems like, for him to work this out. I need to see that play action rate skyrocket. I need to see that pre snap motion skyrocket, get back to what it was. But I also need to see him step back and say, you know what? This team does not have any talent in the backfield. And we can't really get the push up front like we need. So we got to get creative on first downs and throw against those heavier boxes and then run against the lighter boxes. If that cannot happen after a full offseason of being able to analyze and figure out what went right, what went wrong, Arthur Smith, I'm going to be surprised if he makes it past this year. I don't think the Falcons get beyond 5 wins. And if they don't get beyond 5 wins and Arthur Smith shows the lack of adjustment like he did last year, then I wouldn't want him there. I honestly wouldn't. But honestly, that's going to wrap it up for us on the Around the League podcast as we talked about NOLA and Atlanta here. Check out my guy Tommy over at Panther Up Pod. Listen to that podcast. You'll be able to find it rolling out this week as well. You can check out my guy Ooze dropping one with him talking about the Colts as well this week, covering the NFC South, covering the AFC South. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Check us out at rosterupmedia.com.